Ethan had always believed two people would never betray him: his girlfriend Lily and his best friend Ryan. For 6 years, the three of them were inseparable. Ryan was there when Ethan lost his father, and Lily stayed beside him while he struggled to build his business from nothing. They celebrated birthdays together, traveled together, and acted more like family than friends. But recently, something felt different. Lily had become colder. Her phone was always locked. Ryan suddenly stopped visiting often, yet somehow he knew private things Ethan never told him. Small details. Strange details. Ethan ignored the signs because trusting them was easier than accepting the truth. One rainy evening, Ethan prepared a surprise candlelight dinner in their apartment. Soft jazz played in the background while thunder echoed outside the windows. He checked his phone again. No messages from Lily. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. A strange feeling twisted inside his chest. Ethan grabbed his car keys and drove across the city toward Ryan's condo. Maybe they were together planning something harmless. Maybe he was overthinking everything. But deep down, he already knew. Rain hammered against the windshield as city lights blurred around him. Every memory replayed painfully in his mind: Lily laughing too hard at Ryan's jokes, Ryan texting late at night, the sudden distance between them. When Ethan finally arrived outside the condo building, his heart nearly stopped. Lily's car was parked there. At 11:47 p.m. He stared silently through the rain while thunder shook the skyline above him. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "I'm staying at my sister's tonight." And in that exact moment, Ethan realized his entire life had been a lie. Ethan sat inside his car for nearly 2 minutes, staring at Lily's text message while rain poured across the windshield. His fingers trembled around the phone. Part of him wanted to drive away and pretend none of this was happening. But another part of him needed the truth. He stepped out into the storm and walked toward Ryan's condo building. Every step felt heavier than the last. The elevator ride to the 14th floor was painfully silent except for Ethan's breathing and the distant sound of thunder outside. Ding! The elevator doors opened. Ryan's apartment hallway was dimly lit, cold, and quiet. Ethan slowly approached the condo door. His chest tightened when he noticed something strange. The door wasn't fully closed. It was slightly open. A warm light spilled into the hallway while faint laughter echoed from inside. Ryan's laughter. And Lily's. Ethan froze completely. For a second, he hoped there was still some innocent explanation. Maybe friends were over. Maybe he was imagining everything. Then he heard Lily's voice softly whisper, "He can never find out." And Ethan's world shattered instantly. Ethan slowly pushed the door open with trembling hands. Music played quietly inside the apartment. Empty wine glasses rested on the kitchen counter. Candles flickered beside the couch. The entire room felt intimate. Too intimate. Then he saw them. Ryan and Lily sitting together on the couch beneath a blanket, closer than friends should ever be. Ryan's hand rested on her thigh while Lily leaned against his chest comfortably. Neither of them noticed Ethan standing there. For a few horrifying seconds, Ethan simply stared in silence as his entire life collapsed in front of him. His best friend. His girlfriend. The two people he trusted most. Together. Then Lily looked up. Her face instantly turned pale. Ryan slowly stood from the couch, shocked speechless as Ethan's eyes filled with rage and heartbreak at the same time. Nobody spoke. The silence was worse than screaming. The silence inside the condo felt unbearable. Ethan stood near the doorway completely frozen while Lily slowly stepped away from Ryan. Her face was pale with panic, but Ryan looked more irritated than guilty. That hurt Ethan even more. 6 years of friendship. And this was the expression Ryan had? Lily tried speaking first. "Ethan, please listen." But Ethan raised his hand immediately. "Don't." His voice was calm, cold, and terrifyingly quiet. Ryan stepped forward defensively. "Bro, it's not what you think." Ethan laughed bitterly under his breath. The kind of laugh people make when they're too broken to feel pain anymore. Candles flickered around the room while thunder shook the windows outside. Ethan looked around at the wine glasses, the blanket, the romantic atmosphere they clearly shared together behind his back. Then his eyes returned to Lily, the woman he planned to marry someday. "Since when?" Ethan finally asked. Either of them answered, and that silence told him everything. The silence inside the condo felt unbearable. Ethan stood near the doorway completely frozen while Lily slowly stepped away from Ryan. Her face was pale with panic, but Ryan looked more irritated than guilty. That hurt Ethan even more. 6 years of friendship. And this was the expression Ryan had? Lily tried speaking first. "Ethan, please listen." But Ethan raised his hand immediately. "Don't." His voice was calm, cold, and terrifyingly quiet. Ryan stepped forward defensively. "Bro, it's not what you think." Ethan laughed bitterly under his breath. The kind of laugh people make when they're too broken to feel pain anymore. Candles flickered around the room while thunder shook the windows outside. Ethan looked around at the wine glasses, the blanket, the romantic atmosphere they clearly shared together behind his back. Then his eyes returned to Lily, the woman he planned to marry someday. "Since when?" Ethan finally asked. Either of them answered, and that silence told him everything. Ethan drove through the city for hours that night without knowing where he was going. Rain blurred the streets while memories kept replaying endlessly in his head like a cruel movie he couldn't escape. Every laugh Ryan shared with Lily suddenly felt fake. Every "I love you" Lily ever whispered now sounded like a lie. By the time sunrise finally appeared over the city skyline, Ethan was parked alone near the waterfront, exhausted, broken, and unable to process how two people he trusted more than anyone could destroy him so completely. But as painful as the betrayal was, something bothered him even more: the way Ryan acted. There had been no guilt in his eyes. No shame. Almost like this had been happening for a very long time. Ethan suddenly realized he might not know the full truth yet. And that thought refused to leave his mind. Later that afternoon, Ethan returned quietly to the apartment he once shared with Lily while knowing she was probably still with Ryan. The silence inside the apartment felt eerie now. Her perfume still lingered in the air. Her coffee mug still sat near the kitchen sink. Their framed photos still covered the walls like reminders of a fake life that never truly existed. Ethan slowly sat beside the kitchen counter, staring blankly at Lily's old laptop resting nearby. Normally, he would never invade her privacy. But nothing felt normal anymore. Ethan opened Lily's laptop carefully, expecting nothing except more heartbreak. But within minutes, his breathing slowed completely as horrifying truths began appearing one after another on the screen. Hidden messages. Deleted emails. Secret hotel reservations. Photos. Conversations between Lily and Ryan stretching back nearly 11 months. Almost an entire year. Ethan's stomach twisted violently as he realized their affair had started long before Lily became distant. Long before the lies became obvious. They had both looked him in the eyes every single day while secretly betraying him behind his back. But then Ethan discovered something even worse buried deep inside the messages. Ryan had been secretly encouraging Lily to stay with Ethan because of his growing business success. They were using him. Waiting until Ethan's company became profitable before leaving together. Ryan even joked in one message, "Let him build the future for us." Lily had replied with a laughing emoji. At that moment, Ethan no longer felt heartbroken. He felt something much darker. They hadn't just betrayed his love. They had planned to destroy his entire future. And for the very first time since that night, Ethan smiled. Because now he finally knew exactly what kind of revenge they deserved. After discovering the messages on Lily's laptop, Ethan stopped seeing Ryan and Lily as careless cheaters. They were manipulators. Liars. Parasites who had spent nearly a year pretending to love him, while secretly planning to benefit from everything he built. The pain inside him slowly transformed into something colder and more controlled. Ethan realized emotional reactions would only make him lose. If he truly wanted revenge, he needed patience. Silence. Strategy. So instead of confronting them again, Ethan disappeared completely. He stopped answering calls from mutual friends, ignored Lily's desperate messages, and even avoided social media entirely. To everyone around him, it looked like he was simply heartbroken and trying to move on. But in reality, Ethan was quietly watching everything. And the more he watched, the uglier the truth became. Ryan had already started appearing publicly with Lily only days after the breakup, almost as if they had been waiting for Ethan to disappear first. Photos of expensive dinners, rooftop parties, and luxury weekends suddenly flooded social media. Ethan noticed something interesting immediately. Ryan was spending money he definitely didn't have. Expensive watches, designer clothes, VIP clubs. None of it made sense because Ryan had always struggled financially. Unless someone else was paying for it. Ethan already knew exactly who. Late one evening, Ethan sat alone inside his dark office reviewing company financial reports when he discovered something shocking. Several large transfers from his business account had been approved weeks earlier using internal authorization connected to Ryan's consulting access. Ethan's eyes narrowed instantly. Ryan hadn't only stolen his girlfriend. He had been stealing money too. Ethan's chest tightened as he carefully opened transaction histories one by one, uncovering fake consulting invoices, hidden payments, and manipulated accounts connected to shell companies Ryan secretly controlled. The deeper Ethan investigated, the clearer the betrayal became. Ryan and Lily were not simply having an affair. They were planning to drain Ethan's company before abandoning him completely. Ethan leaned back silently in his chair while rage burned behind his calm expression. Every sacrifice he made over the last 5 years suddenly felt poisoned by their greed. But instead of panicking, Ethan did something Ryan would never expect. He started collecting evidence quietly. Every payment, every message, every document. He copied everything onto encrypted drives while building a complete timeline of Ryan's fraud. Day after day, Ethan played the role of the broken victim while secretly preparing something far more dangerous behind the scenes. Then one night, Ethan received an invitation notification online for Ryan's upcoming birthday party at one of the city's most luxurious rooftop clubs. Hundreds of guests would be there. Influencers, investors, friends, business contacts. Ryan planned to celebrate publicly like he had already won. Ethan stared at the invitation silently for several seconds before a slow smile appeared across his face. Because suddenly, he knew exactly where the revenge would begin. For the next several days, Ethan became someone nobody recognized anymore. The emotional, trusting man who once believed loyalty meant something had completely disappeared. In his place stood someone colder, quieter, and far more dangerous. Every morning, Ethan continued running his company normally while secretly preparing for Ryan's destruction behind the scenes. He organized financial records, saved hidden conversations, and even contacted a private investigator who confirmed several illegal accounts connected to Ryan's name. The evidence became overwhelming. Ryan had stolen thousands from Ethan's business while pretending to help it grow. Meanwhile, Lily continued sending fake apology messages almost every night. Ethan never responded once. But he read every single message carefully. What disturbed him most was how quickly Lily shifted between guilt and manipulation. One moment she claimed she still loved him. The next she blamed him for pushing her away. Ethan finally understood the truth. Neither Lily nor Ryan felt genuine remorse. They only regretted getting caught too early. That realization removed the last piece of emotion Ethan still carried for them. Now revenge no longer felt personal. It felt necessary. Late Friday evening, Ethan stood alone inside his luxury apartment overlooking the glowing city skyline while adjusting the sleeves of his black suit in silence. Ryan's birthday party was tonight. The same rooftop club where Ryan planned to celebrate stealing Ethan's girlfriend, his money, and his future. Ethan stared at his reflection in the mirror calmly while thunderclouds gathered outside once again, almost identical to the night everything collapsed. But tonight was different. Tonight Ethan was no longer the victim walking into betrayal blindly. Tonight he was walking in prepared. When Ethan finally arrived at the rooftop club, music thundered across the open-air terrace while wealthy guests laughed beneath glowing neon lights. The city skyline sparkled behind them as champagne glasses clinked and cameras flashed constantly around Ryan's celebration. Ethan walked through the crowd unnoticed at first, calmly observing everything from a distance. Then he saw them. Ryan stood near the VIP section wearing an expensive designer suit Ethan knew he couldn't afford without stolen money, while Lily wrapped her arm around him smiling like nothing had ever happened. For a brief moment, Ethan felt the old anger rising inside him again. But then he remembered the evidence waiting safely inside his jacket pocket. Financial records, screenshots, hidden transfers, and proof powerful enough to destroy Ryan publicly in a single night. Ethan slowly approached the bar while keeping his eyes locked on Ryan across the rooftop. Suddenly Ryan noticed him standing there. The smile on Ryan's face disappeared instantly. Lily turned seconds later and nearly dropped her glass in shock. The music continued blasting around them, but the atmosphere between the three of them became ice-cold immediately. Ethan raised his drink slightly toward Ryan with a calm smile before speaking his first words since the betrayal. "Happy birthday, brother!" And for the first time all night, Ryan looked afraid. The moment Ethan appeared at the rooftop party, the entire energy around Ryan changed instantly. Earlier that night, Ryan had been acting untouchable, laughing loudly, showing off expensive champagne, and enjoying the attention of investors and influencers surrounding him. But now his confidence cracked visibly the second Ethan stepped into the VIP section. Lily looked equally shaken, unable to maintain the fake smile she had been wearing all evening. Ethan noticed everything immediately. The nervous eye contact between them, Ryan subtly adjusting his posture, Lily gripping her glass too tightly. Good. Fear was finally beginning to replace arrogance. Ethan remained completely calm as he walked closer through the crowd while soft neon lights reflected across the rooftop terrace. Several mutual friends noticed him and exchanged awkward looks, clearly aware of the scandal but unsure what was about to happen next. Ryan forced an uncomfortable smile and stepped forward first. "Didn't expect to see you here." Ethan smiled politely. "Why? You invited almost everyone else." The tension between them instantly became suffocating. Even nearby guests began sensing something uncomfortable beneath the surface. But Ethan didn't come there to scream or fight. That would have been easy. No. Ethan wanted something far more satisfying. He wanted Ryan destroyed publicly, piece by piece, in front of the exact people Ryan spent months trying to impress. Ethan calmly accepted a drink from the bartender while casually observing the rooftop around him. Investors, business owners, influencers, important people. Perfect. Ryan still believed this was simply an awkward reunion between betrayed friends. He had no idea Ethan already knew everything. As the night continued, Ryan tried desperately to act normal, but Ethan could see panic slowly growing behind his eyes. Lily barely spoke at all, staying close beside Ryan while avoiding direct eye contact with Ethan completely. Around midnight, Ryan climbed onto the small stage near the rooftop DJ booth to give a birthday speech to the crowd. Music lowered while guests gathered around holding drinks and recording videos with their phones. Ryan raised his champagne glass confidently, pretending everything in his life was perfect. "I just want to thank everyone who supported me this year." But before he could continue, Ethan slowly stepped forward through the crowd. "Actually, I think everyone deserves to hear the full story." The rooftop fell silent instantly. Ryan's expression froze. Lily's face turned pale. Ethan calmly pulled several folded documents from inside his jacket, while dozens of curious eyes turned toward him. Ryan immediately climbed down from the stage and whispered aggressively, "What the hell are you doing?" Ethan looked directly into his eyes without fear. "Telling the truth." Then Ethan turned toward the crowd and raised the financial documents slightly into the air. "Did you all know Ryan paid for this entire party using stolen money?" A wave of shocked whispers exploded across the rooftop instantly. Phones lowered. Conversation stopped. Ryan's confident image shattered in less than 5 seconds while Lily stared at Ethan in complete horror. But Ethan wasn't finished yet. Not even close. The rooftop erupted into chaos the moment Ethan exposed the stolen financial records publicly. Guests who had been laughing and celebrating only seconds earlier now stood frozen in disbelief, while whispers spread rapidly across the terrace like wildfire. Several investors exchanged concerned looks immediately after hearing Ethan's accusation, especially when they recognized the company logos printed across the documents in his hands. Ryan tried forcing a laugh at first, pretending Ethan was simply drunk and emotional after the breakup, but the panic in his eyes betrayed him completely. Ethan remained calm while the wind swept across the rooftop beneath flashing neon lights and distant thunderclouds. He slowly opened the folder and began reading transaction details aloud one by one. Fake consulting payments, unauthorized transfers, hidden shell accounts connected directly to Ryan's name. The more Ethan spoke, the paler Ryan became. Lily stood beside him completely speechless, realizing this situation was spiraling far beyond personal drama now. This wasn't just cheating anymore. This was fraud. Public fraud. One investor stepped forward angrily and demanded Ryan explain himself, but Ryan immediately lost control and grabbed Ethan's arm aggressively. "You think you can ruin my life over a relationship?" Ethan stared coldly at him before pulling his arm away. "No, Ryan. You ruined your own life the moment you stole from me." The crowd fell silent again. Cameras were recording now. Phones streamed everything live onto social media, while Ryan's carefully crafted image collapsed in real time for everyone to witness. Ethan could see genuine fear spreading across Ryan's face for the first time since the betrayal began. And honestly, Ethan enjoyed every second of it. Ryan suddenly snapped completely. Furious and desperate, he shoved Ethan violently in front of everyone while shouting, "You think you're innocent?" Gasps spread across the rooftop as security guards immediately moved closer. Lily tried calming Ryan down, but he pushed her away too, causing her nearly to fall beside the VIP tables. His perfect mask was finally gone. The charming businessman everyone admired moments earlier had transformed into an angry, unstable man losing control publicly. Ethan slowly stood back up after the shove, straightening his black suit calmly while blood dripped slightly from his lip where Ryan's ring had cut him. But instead of fighting back physically, Ethan smiled. Because Ryan had just made the biggest mistake possible, assaulting him in front of dozens of witnesses while already being accused of financial crimes. Ethan reached into his jacket once again and revealed something even worse than the documents. A small flash drive. Ryan's face instantly drained of color. Inside that drive were recorded phone calls, private messages, and proof connecting Ryan to every stolen dollar. But there was one file Ryan feared most, an audio recording of Ryan laughing with Lily about using Ethan financially before abandoning him. Ethan held the drive up slightly while staring directly into Ryan's terrified eyes. "Should we play it for everyone?" Lily immediately burst into tears. And suddenly Ryan realized the nightmare was only beginning. Ryan suddenly snapped completely. Furious and desperate, he shoved Ethan violently in front of everyone while shouting, "You think you're innocent?" Gasps spread across the rooftop as security guards immediately moved closer. Lily tried calming Ryan down, but he pushed her away too, causing her nearly to fall beside the VIP tables. His perfect mask was finally gone. The charming businessman everyone admired moments earlier had transformed into an angry, unstable man losing control publicly. Ethan slowly stood back up after the shove, straightening his black suit calmly while blood dripped slightly from his lip where Ryan's ring had cut him. But instead of fighting back physically, Ethan smiled. Because Ryan had just made the biggest mistake possible, assaulting him in front of dozens of witnesses while already being accused of financial crimes. Ethan reached into his jacket once again and revealed something even worse than the documents. A small flash drive. Ryan's face instantly drained of color. Inside that drive were recorded phone calls, private messages, and proof connecting Ryan to every stolen dollar. But there was one file Ryan feared most, an audio recording of Ryan laughing with Lily about using Ethan financially before abandoning him. Ethan held the drive up slightly while staring directly into Ryan's terrified eyes. "Should we play it for everyone?" Lily immediately burst into tears. And suddenly Ryan realized the nightmare was only beginning. A few seconds later, Ryan's recorded voice echoed loudly across the entire rooftop. "Relax. Ethan's too blind to notice anything." Laughter followed. Then Lily's voice appeared. "Once his company grows more, we'll leave together." The rooftop crowd reacted instantly with shocked gasps and horrified whispers. Some guests lowered their phones slowly while others stared directly at Ryan with disgust. Investors who had supported Ryan financially moments earlier now looked furious after hearing the recording themselves. But the worst part came next. Ryan's voice laughed again through the speakers. "Honestly, he deserves it for trusting us." The silence afterward felt brutal. Lily completely broke down crying while Ryan stood frozen in humiliation, unable to deny anything anymore. Years of fake loyalty, fake friendship, and fake love collapsed publicly within minutes. Ethan stood quietly near the rooftop edge watching the city lights below while the chaos exploded behind him. Police officers were already entering the rooftop after several investors threatened legal action over the fraud accusations. Ryan finally looked at Ethan one last time, not with arrogance anymore, but with pure hatred and fear combined. But Ethan felt nothing now. No anger. No sadness. No heartbreak. Only peace. Because for the first time since the betrayal began, Ryan understood exactly what it felt like to lose everything. By the next morning, the rooftop scandal had spread across the internet completely. Videos of Ryan being publicly exposed flooded social media platforms while headlines about financial fraud, betrayal, and leaked recordings dominated local news pages. Ethan woke up inside his penthouse apartment to dozens of missed calls, messages, and notifications flashing endlessly across his phone screen. Mutual friends wanted explanations. Business partners wanted details. Journalists wanted interviews. But Ethan ignored all of them quietly while standing beside the large windows overlooking the cloudy city skyline. For the first time in weeks, the weight crushing his chest finally felt lighter. Ryan's perfect image had been destroyed overnight exactly the same way Ryan destroyed Ethan's trust. But despite the public humiliation, Ethan knew this situation was far from finished. People like Ryan never accepted defeat quietly. And Ethan was right. Around noon, Ethan's office receptionist nervously informed him that Ryan had arrived downstairs demanding to see him immediately. Several employees already looked uncomfortable after recognizing Ryan from the viral rooftop videos online. Ethan calmly adjusted his suit before telling security to let Ryan come upstairs. Minutes later, Ryan stormed into Ethan's office looking completely different from the confident man at the rooftop party. His eyes were exhausted. His expensive suit looked wrinkled, and anger radiated from him like fire. The second the office doors closed behind him, Ryan slammed both hands onto Ethan's desk aggressively. "You ruined my life!" Ethan slowly looked up from his paperwork without emotion. "No, Ryan. I exposed it." That answer only made Ryan angrier. Ryan continued shouting inside the office while employees outside watched nervously through the glass walls. He blamed Ethan for everything: the investors abandoning him, the police investigation, the collapsing business deals, even Lily leaving him after the rooftop disaster. Ethan listened silently while realizing something important. Ryan still refused to accept responsibility for his own actions. Even after being exposed publicly, he still saw himself as the victim somehow. Finally, Ryan lowered his voice and stepped closer toward Ethan's desk with desperation replacing rage. "Please, just give me the evidence. We can settle this privately." Ethan leaned back slowly in his chair while studying Ryan's face carefully. This was no longer the arrogant best friend who mocked him secretly behind his back. This was a desperate man watching his future collapse piece by piece. But Ethan remembered every laugh from the recording. Every fake smile. Every lie. And suddenly pity disappeared completely. Ethan opened a nearby desk drawer and calmly placed several printed legal documents onto the table between them. Ryan stared down in confusion. Then his face turned pale. Fraud charges. Financial theft. Civil lawsuits. Everything prepared already. Ethan folded his hands together calmly before speaking. You spent nearly a year planning to destroy my future. He paused briefly. Now you get to watch me destroy yours. At that exact moment, Ryan realized Ethan wasn't bluffing anymore. And for the first time since they met as teenagers, Ryan looked truly broken. After Ryan left Ethan's office that afternoon, the silence inside the building felt strangely satisfying. Employees slowly returned to work while whispers about the confrontation spread through every floor of the company. Ethan stood alone near the large office windows watching dark clouds move across the skyline while replaying everything in his mind. Months ago, he would have done anything to protect Ryan and Lily. He trusted them more than family. But now both of them had become strangers destroyed by their own greed. Ethan expected to feel happiness after finally taking revenge, yet the feeling inside him was colder than victory. It felt like closure. Later that evening, Ethan returned home exhausted and loosened his tie while entering the quiet apartment. The city lights outside reflected softly across the dark living room as rain began falling once again. But the moment Ethan stepped farther inside, he froze instantly. Someone was sitting near the kitchen counter waiting for him. Lily. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked nothing like the confident woman standing beside Ryan at the rooftop party days earlier. She looked exhausted. Broken. Afraid. Ethan's expression hardened immediately. How did you get in here? Lily slowly held up her old apartment key with trembling hands before placing it quietly onto the counter. For several seconds neither of them spoke. The air between them felt painfully heavy with memories, betrayal, and unfinished emotions. Finally Lily looked at Ethan with tears forming again. Ryan lied to me too. Ethan almost laughed hearing those words. After everything she helped destroy, she suddenly wanted sympathy now? But Lily kept speaking through tears, explaining how Ryan manipulated her for months, promising her money, luxury, and a perfect future once Ethan's company succeeded. According to Lily, Ryan planned to leave her eventually too after taking control of Ethan's finances completely. Ethan listened silently while rage slowed. Lily eventually stepped closer toward Ethan carefully while tears rolled down her face. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I never wanted things to go this far. Ethan stared at her silently, searching for any sign that her regret was genuine. Maybe part of it was real. Maybe she truly felt guilty now that Ryan abandoned her, and the world saw them as villains publicly. But Ethan also understood something important. Regret after consequences was not the same as loyalty before betrayal. Lily suddenly reached into her purse and removed several printed papers before placing them onto the table. Ethan glanced down carefully. His eyes narrowed immediately. They were private contracts and hidden financial agreements signed secretly by Ryan months earlier. More evidence. Bigger evidence. Enough to completely destroy what little remained of Ryan's career forever. Lily looked up slowly. I copied these before leaving him. Ethan remained silent while studying the documents carefully. Ryan had hidden money offshore, manipulated investors illegally, and even planned to blame Ethan publicly if the fraud was ever discovered. The deeper Ethan read, the darker the truth became. Finally Ethan looked back toward Lily, who stood trembling quietly beneath the dim apartment lights. Why are you giving me this? Lily's voice cracked softly. Because Ryan deserves worse. For the first time since she betrayed him. Ethan saw genuine fear in her eyes too. Ethan spent nearly an hour reviewing every document Lily brought that night, and with each page his expression grew colder. Ryan's corruption went far deeper than simple theft. Hidden offshore accounts, forged investor signatures, illegal transfers, tax fraud. The evidence connected him to crimes powerful enough to destroy not only his reputation, but his entire future permanently. Lily sat quietly across the room while Ethan studied the papers beneath the dim apartment lights. Rain continued falling softly against the windows while tension filled the silence between them. Finally, Ethan placed the final document down carefully and leaned back against the chair. For several seconds he simply stared at the ceiling, processing how close Ryan had come to destroying everything he built over the last 5 years. If Ethan had never discovered the affair that night, Ryan would have continued draining the company quietly until there was nothing left. The realization made Ethan's jaw tighten with anger again. Lily slowly looked toward him before speaking carefully. "He's meeting investors tomorrow night." Ethan's eyes shifted toward her immediately. "Where?" She hesitated briefly. "Private yacht party near the marina." A slow silence followed. Ethan already understood what Ryan was trying to do. He was desperate now. Cornered. Trying to secure new money before the investigations fully collapsed around him. But desperation also made people careless. And careless people made mistakes. Ethan stood up slowly and walked toward the apartment windows overlooking the stormy city skyline while thoughts raced through his mind. Then, finally, a calm smile appeared across his face again. Because Ryan was about to walk directly into his final trap. The following evening, luxury cars lined the marina while wealthy investors boarded Ryan's rented yacht beneath glowing harbor lights. Music echoed softly across the water as champagne flowed and business conversations filled the upper deck. Ryan moved through the crowd pretending his life was still under control despite the growing scandal online. He forced fake confidence into every handshake while secretly panicking inside. Investors had already started doubting him after the rooftop incident, and tonight was his final chance to convince them he remained trustworthy. But Ryan had no idea Ethan was already there. Hidden among the invited guests wearing a black tailored suit, Ethan calmly observed everything from the shadows while federal financial investigators waited nearby with sealed warrants prepared using the evidence Lily provided. Ethan checked his watch silently as Ryan stepped onto the center deck preparing another confident speech for the investors surrounding him. The exact same arrogance. The exact same fake smile. Ryan still believed he could manipulate his way out of anything. But then Ethan slowly stepped forward into the light once again. Ryan's face instantly froze in horror. Before he could even react, bright police lights suddenly illuminated the entire marina while armed investigators stormed onto the yacht from every direction. Guests screamed in confusion as officers surrounded Ryan publicly in front of everyone. Ethan watched silently while investigators placed Ryan in handcuffs beside the railing overlooking the dark ocean water. Ryan looked toward Ethan desperately one final time. "You ruined everything." But Ethan simply stared back coldly. "No, Ryan." He paused briefly. "You did." News of Ryan's arrest exploded across every major media platform within hours. Videos of federal agents escorting him off the luxury yacht in handcuffs flooded social media while financial reporters uncovered more details about his fraud schemes each day. Investors abandoned him completely. Business partners denied knowing him publicly. Even former friends disappeared overnight to protect their own reputations. Within less than a week, Ryan lost everything he spent years pretending to build. Ethan watched the chaos quietly from a distance while sitting alone inside his office late one evening. The city skyline glowed softly beyond the windows as rain tapped gently against the glass once again, almost like the storm that started everything months earlier. But this time Ethan felt different. Calm. The revenge was complete now. Ryan's lies were exposed, his greed destroyed him publicly, and the future he tried stealing from Ethan no longer existed. Yet despite everything, Ethan still couldn't fully erase the memories of who Ryan once was. They had grown up together, shared dreams together, trusted each other like brothers once. That realization hurt more than the betrayal itself sometimes. Across the desk sat the engagement ring Ethan never gave Lily, still resting silently inside its black velvet box. Ethan stared at it for several moments before finally closing the box and placing it deep inside a drawer. Some chapters deserved to stay buried forever. His phone suddenly vibrated across the desk. A message from Lily appeared on the screen. "I'm leaving the city tomorrow." Ethan read the message silently but didn't respond immediately. Later that night, Ethan drove toward the waterfront marina where the city lights reflected beautifully across the dark ocean waves. The air felt colder than usual as he noticed Lily standing near the empty docks alone beneath the streetlights, exactly where she said she would be. She looked exhausted, emotionally destroyed by everything that happened over the last few weeks. Slowly Ethan walked toward her while the distant sound of waves echoed around them. For several seconds neither of them spoke. Finally Lily looked toward the water quietly before whispering, "I really did love you once." Ethan closed his eyes briefly hearing those words. Maybe she believed them. Maybe part of them was even true. But love without loyalty eventually became meaningless. Lily wiped tears from her face before continuing softly, "I know I don't deserve another chance." Ethan looked at her calmly. "You're right." The honesty in his voice hurt her visibly, but Ethan no longer wanted to soften painful truths for anyone. Lily nodded slowly while staring down at the harbor lights reflecting across the water. Then she handed Ethan one final envelope before turning away. "For what it's worth. I'm sorry." Without another word, Lily walked into the darkness toward the waiting taxi nearby while Ethan remained standing alone beside the marina holding the envelopes silently in his hands. The woman he once imagined spending his life with had become nothing more than another painful memory fading into the night. Ethan stood alone on the marina dock long after Lily's taxi disappeared into the distance, holding the envelope she left behind without opening it immediately. The wind moved cold across the water, and the city lights shimmered in broken reflections beneath the dark waves. Everything that had defined the last months of his life, betrayal, revenge, anger, destruction, now felt strangely distant, like it belonged to someone else's story. Slowly, Ethan finally opened the envelope. Inside were handwritten pages, not legal documents or schemes, but confessions. Lily wrote everything: how Ryan manipulated her from the beginning, how he planned to destroy Ethan's company step by step, how she initially believed Ryan's lies about a shared future that never existed. But as Ethan read further, his expression changed slightly. The final pages were not about Ryan. They were about him. Lily admitted that at some point, she stopped knowing where manipulation ended and her own choices began. She wrote that even when she realized Ryan's true intentions, she stayed silent because she was afraid of losing the comfort Ryan promised her. And worse, she admitted she kept convincing herself Ethan would be fine, even if he was hurt. That sentence lingered in Ethan's mind longer than anything else. The truth was simple and painful: she hadn't just been fooled. She had chosen convenience over loyalty. Ethan folded the pages slowly and looked out at the ocean again, feeling no anger anymore. Only acceptance. Some betrayals were not dramatic moments. They were slow decisions repeated over time until trust no longer survived. Days passed. Then weeks. Ryan's case continued through the courts while media attention slowly faded into background noise. Ethan returned fully to his company, which surprisingly grew stronger after the scandal due to investor transparency and public trust rebuilding. For the first time in a long while, Ethan's life was no longer controlled by chaos. One afternoon, while reviewing business reports inside his office, Ethan received one final notification: Ryan had accepted a plea deal. Prison sentence confirmed. Years, not months. Ethan closed the notification quietly and leaned back in his chair without emotion. There was no celebration. No satisfaction. Just finality. That evening, Ethan visited the rooftop of his building alone. The same skyline stretched endlessly in front of him, the same city where everything had broken and rebuilt itself again. The wind was calmer now. The sky clearer. Ethan stood at the edge of the rooftop and allowed himself one final moment of reflection. He thought about trust, betrayal, revenge, and how easily people could destroy what they once built together. But most importantly, he thought about what came after revenge: not victory, not happiness, but silence. A silence that forced you to rebuild yourself without needing anyone else to define your worth. The rooftop wind moved gently that evening as Ethan stood alone facing the city skyline, watching the lights slowly flicker on one by one as night approached. Everything that had once felt chaotic in his life now felt strangely still, almost unfamiliar. The anger, the obsession with justice, the need to prove something to Ryan and Lily, all of it had burned itself out completely. What remained was silence, and in that silence Ethan finally understood something important. Revenge had not healed him. It had only ended a chapter. The wounds were still there, just no longer bleeding openly. He thought about Ryan sitting behind prison walls, about Lily starting a new life somewhere far away, and about how all of them had been connected by choices that slowly destroyed what once felt meaningful. Ethan leaned slightly against the rooftop railing, closing his eyes for a moment as the wind brushed across his face. There was no satisfaction in their downfall anymore, only distance, like watching strangers suffer consequences of a life that no longer belonged to him. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, scrolling past old messages, photos, reminders of a version of himself that once trusted too easily and loved without protection. After a long pause, Ethan deleted them all, one by one. Not out of anger, but release. Because sometimes moving forward doesn't feel like winning, it feels like letting go of the need for closure from people who never deserved it in the first place. A few days later, Ethan returned to his normal routine fully. Meetings, projects, decisions, growth, life continued as it always had, but something inside him had changed permanently. He no longer saw success as something tied to proving others wrong. Instead, he focused on building something stable, something that could not be easily destroyed by lies or betrayal. One afternoon, while walking through the city streets, Ethan passed by a cafe window and briefly saw his reflection. For a moment he paused. The man staring back at him was no longer the same person who once waited in a candlelit room hoping for love that didn't exist. He had become quieter, more controlled, more aware. Not colder, just aware of how fragile trust could be. Ethan continued walking without stopping, blending into the movement of the city around him. There was no dramatic ending, no final confrontation, no perfect justice waiting at the end of everything. Just life continuing forward, indifferent and steady. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan didn't need revenge, answers, or apologies from anyone. Because he finally understood the only closure that ever mattered was the one he gave himself.